So this is Jennifer with Women Loving Jesus, and today we are on Proverbs 13:24. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. We have probably heard this proverb before quoted. You might have it memorized. We have probably heard it at some point referencing parenting because this is talking about parenting. Now, what this proverb is really trying to tell you is a child needs correction early on in their life. Now, whether this is spanking or not spanking, early on in life, not later, I think there's several ways to correct a child, but correction needs to be done. And that's the point of this proverb, is that the child is being corrected from behavior that is not going to be helpful. The reason this is saying that you don't love your child if you don't correct them is because they will develop bad behaviors early on, and without correction, they will continue them into adulthood. I have seen grown adults appear to have emotional temper tantrums because they are told no. As an adult, one of the things that your child needs to know how to do is to be able to accept a no in a work situation or with peers and not emotionally break down. That is something that we teach them as a child, that they take correction. When coming up with ways to correct your child, there are two things that are very important. One of them is they need to clearly be communicated what you expect the behavior to be like in the home and what are the rules of the home. For instance, if there's no hitting each other, it is clearly communicated before discipline happens. We don't hit each other. And then there is a correction that you have decided on ahead of time, just in general, right? Do we do timeout? Do we take things away? Do we, they have to work to gain something back? I mean, there's a lot of different corrections that can happen. Taking toys away. I mean things like that. Going to bed early. Things that you would like to implement in your household that you feel comfortable with. Once you decide, okay, there is no hitting, and maybe how we're going to correct is timeout. You have to be consistent. One of the things that I see with parenting is it's usually not consistent. So they have in their mind that they want to do timeout, but especially when you're training children, or when you want to implement the consequence, they get upset. Of course, they get upset. They don't want the consequence. And so it can be a little emotionally draining or take some time, or you have to be patient to implement it. So a lot of times the parents just don't want to implement it every time, only when they have enough time to implement it. Well, you're not being consistent. And then the kids pick up on that big time, and then they don't follow through with taking the correction as well. And so it's usually not so much about which way you determine to correct the child. It's usually more about consistency. And it's usually about, sometimes it has to be tailored to the child's personality. If one of the corrections is the child goes to bed early, but they love going to bed early, that's not a correction. You're just giving them what they want. Okay. If a kid is time out and they actually like time out because they don't mind being by themselves, it's not really a correction. Taking away a favorite toy or not allowing them to see this movie, or, something that is actually, okay, you can't, this is a consequence. And so remember, once again, correcting the child, clear communication about the rules and what the expectations, and then being consistent with whatever ways you choose to correct the child. So I pray that the Holy Spirit has encouraged you today with this verse, and I thank you for listening.